Hello everyone and welcome along to this bonus episode of the Psyche Explorer, following up our paranormal investigation with Joolz Bailey. In the last episode, it was a bumper hour and a half long, where I was taken to a secret location and spent a very good evening investigating paranormal comings and goings. Joolz had her silver case full of gadgets and gizmos, which we used to try and detect ghosts, spirits, and paranormal anomalies. As I said at the end of the last episode, I didn't have time to splice in Joolz's interview to that episode. It would have been way too long. So, thank you so much for coming back to this interview where we discuss how we felt the night went. I would really be interested to hear what your thoughts are. Are you team believer? Are you team skeptic? Are you team not quite sure? Let me know. You can find me at the.psychic.explorer, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, even on TikTok, although I still haven't added anything to that yet. So if you have any ideas, any thoughts, any explanations as to what we experienced on that evening, I'd love for you to reach out. Give me a shout. But for now, here is the lovely Joolz Bailey as we discuss our paranormal investigation. Hello, Joolz. Lovely to see your face again. How the devil are you?
I'm really good. Thank you, Matt. Lovely to see you again as well.
Thank you so much for coming on to this bonus episode. I wanted to capture your thoughts on that amazing night that you invited me on. The episode was quite long, about an hour and a half long, and I thought to add you on to that as well might be a bit much for the dear listeners. So I thought let's have a little bonus episode to analyse how the night went. So yeah, I mean, from my point of view, Joolz, I thought it was incredible, but I'm really intrigued to hear how it was for you, because you do this a lot. You tell the audience, tell the listeners your background and your history with paranormal investigating.
Oh, wow. I thought you said you only wanted it to be an hour. Okay, I'll try and condense it as best I can.
Yeah, if you can.
Okay, I'll try. Probably about 20 years ago now, roughly, I started going along to paranormal investigations. These were public investigations. The idea was that you pay to go on the event, and they lay on all sorts of activities on the night. So it would be vigils, it would be sitting in a room by yourself doing lone vigils with a locked off camera. They would do things like table tipping and seances and Ouija boards and all sorts of things to give you that experience. And I thought, my goodness, I love this. I'd had a lifelong interest in anything that was spooky, anything paranormal, ghosts in particular. So, yeah, I said, how do I get more involved? And they invited me and my other half, Andy, to join them, which we did. We were with them for probably a couple of years, I would say. And then we kind of decided that actually public events weren't for us. It wasn't really the route that we wanted to go down. As soon as you introduce the public to an event, then you've got a very, very different kind of investigation, because you're no longer there just purely to investigate. You're there to entertain, really.
I was going to say, does that introduce an element of their expectation being a thrill or being spooked or being something immediate?
It does. And a big problem with that is when people are paying money to go on an investigation, they want things to happen. And as the person who is facilitating the evening, you want things to happen for them. And I can really see why that would easily lead to some of these public groups. I don't want to say the word faking, although I've just said it. But yeah, embellishing, that's a better way of putting it, yeah. Because you want the public to have that good experience. And if it means that maybe you do embellish what has happened, then yeah, I can see clearly why people would want to do it. And that was a part of the reason why public investigations just weren't for us. So we took a big step back from the public stuff and we joined a local paranormal investigation group called NPEG, Norwich Paranormal Experience Group. And they didn't do public investigations at the time. It was just pure investigation. And that's really where I learned my craft, so to speak. I learned how to investigate properly. And it wasn't for the thrills and spills of the audience anymore. It was just purely for the opportunity to gather evidence. And that was very eye-opening. Sadly, that group went down the public investigation route as well. And it's tempting to do it, you see. I can see why it's tempting, because you want to be able to bring this to the public in a really interesting way and give them that experience of investigating in a way that it's, it's nothing like on TV, as you experienced yourself on the night, of course. So, we spent a couple of years with NPEG, but they went down that public route. So in the end, I thought, do you know what? If I want to do it my way, I better do it my way. And that's when I started up Spirit Norwich. And we don't advertise, we don't do public events particularly, except unless it's for a particular charitable event or something along those lines. Yeah, pure investigation. That's what we're all about.
Love it. So you've done this for, as you said, 20 or so years now, a long time. You've got a lot of experience. Because this was my first time experiencing this. One thing I said on the episode, and one thing I want to just re-emphasize today, is that I felt you handled that investigation, that demonstration, really professionally. I felt it was cool, calm, and I felt like I was in very safe hands. It was a real professional vibe, and everything you had an explanation for everything. You were able to explain things in a really logical manner, which I really appreciated, because sometimes in my mind I can get a little bit too logical, and you were able to re-emphasize where I was probably right in, actually that probably isn't this, it's probably a natural phenomenon, or actually there could be something else going on here. I felt that we had so much activity that evening. We had the music boxes going off constantly where it couldn't have picked us up. I know it took us a while to figure out where the sensor radius started and stopped, but once we figured it out, we were well out of its radius, and that kept going off. The AM music box outside, that picked up on a couple of little things, I thought, and we'll go into that later on in this conversation as well. The ghost tube, our own personal psychic sensations, the dowsing rods, the pendants, the noises that we heard, especially that one particular time. Is that normal to have so much activity in one investigation?
I think it very much depends upon the location. Some places you go to, the minute you walk in, you think, oh, yeah, we're in for a good night. Some places you go to, it just feels completely flat. Sometimes I kind of get the feeling that we have to increase the energy in the place in order to make something happen. Because I suppose if you think about it as maybe if we go to an abandoned site, I'll pick a random site from the top of my head, St. Benet's Abbey. You'll find many paranormal investigators who will go and visit this site. But for the most part, it is a ruin in the middle of the Broads. It's not easily accessible, so it's got a teeny tiny car park. It's only really locals who know about it. Maybe you might get the odd tourist who'll go past on a boat, but that's kind of about it. So for the most part, it's just sitting there, just being empty, just doing its thing, just being a ruin in the middle of nowhere. And so that energy isn't there. Then you compare that with maybe if you're investigating a pub or a popular venue somewhere in the city, or maybe even somebody's own home, then obviously you've got that constant energy happening there. And I think that helps with the communication and with the activity at the place. So, yeah, very much dependent upon where you are.
I'm so glad you brought up St. Benedict's Abbey, because when this first came up, I thought, I wonder if we're going to go there, because it's literally like 5 minutes drive from my house. And I thought that there must be something going on there. There must be something there, because you're right. It is just this very strangely shaped, it almost looks like an old hop house or something you'd find in Kent, like with the old, like this big cone, sort of brick cone rising from the middle of the Broads. But it was once an old abbey. And I just thought, I'd love to go there and just on an evening and just sort of sit and just see what I can feel.
We'll have to go there another time, Matt. We'll just have to do another one and I'll take you there. How about that?
If you're up for that, I'd be well happy. And I'll bring my mega powerful torch to blind any bull that might try and stampede us, because my torch on that night was pretty epic. I bought that on Amazon. I was really happy with that purchase.
That was a good talk. I must admit, I had torch envy. I'm not going to lie.
Torch envy.
I
Love
did.
it. Yeah, giving someone torch envy. When we started the investigation, you said that you've been there several times before this particular location, and you said that you had encountered a spirit and you wondered if you were going to encounter that spirit again. It didn't make the final edit, but at the end of the night, you said there's normally someone or something in the graveyard, and he's like a caretaker. Could you explain just a bit more about that? What has been your previous experience at that location?
So, yeah, I have been there a few times in the past, and every time I've been, I have bumped into a gentleman in the grounds, and he seems to be either a caretaker, as you said, maybe a custodian, a groundsman, somebody who is looking after the graveyard itself. And he always seems to just be kind of like peeking around the corner of the church and just kind of like, watching what's going on and making sure basically that, we're not going to get up to mischief in his church. And he seems like a really kindly gentleman, somebody who is really wanting the best for the place. And I think maybe having spent so much of his time in that place, I think he's probably still drawn to it. I haven't really been able to find out a great deal about him as an individual. He's one of those the country sort, where if you have a conversation with him, "Oh, you're right, my man, how are you?" You'll just get "I'm all right," yeah, all right. A big nod of the head while he's leaning on his hoe or his pitchfork or whatever implement he's using at the time, and just one of those who's a watcher as opposed to somebody who's there to have a big conversation.
Yeah. And may I just add as well, just for international listeners, calling someone my man is nothing too personal or over familiar. That is a very Norfolk phrase, isn't it? To call someone my man is a very Norfolk phrase. My
man, my woman, or my lovely, if you want to go like Great Norfolk. Yeah, I am a Norwich girl, so those little phrases do slip out sometimes.
I love it. I think I love. That's what I love about it. Just, you can go 20 miles down the road and you've got a different accent. I used to live in the West Country, and the Norfolk and the West Country accent is kind of similar, but not.
It really is.
If you can hear someone really talking in broad Norfolk, it's like they're singing to you, and all the end of the sentences just have this huge inflection, like they're asking a question all the time.
Yep, every time I used to rock up to my nanny's house, she'd open up the door and she'd say, "Do you keep troshing, Bo? Shall I get the kettle on?" So it was always a case of, okay, what does that one mean again? Oh, right, yes. Are you okay, neighbour, my friend? Would you like me to get the kettle on? I think that's what it meant.
Brilliant,
yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So just to go back to this guy, this custodian, you didn't feel him there, or was there something? Because we both picked up on something at the very end. And again, I don't think it made the final edit, but we both picked up on something in that graveyard to the right of the church. Did you feel him at all that evening or not?
Yeah, I think it was him. When we very, very first arrived, I think I said, "I don't know if I feel anything at the moment," but
you did.
Just as we were about to go into the church, I felt like there was a little face just kind of peering around the edge of the church. So I was thinking that when we got outside, we might have had some more activity, but maybe he was just a bit too chilly.
Maybe. Well, someone didn't like our lights. Someone didn't like my light.
No, the box kept saying, "Turn it off," didn't it? Very strange.
Let's sort of work our way backwards then. So let's talk about that box, because we're talking about the custodian outside. You took out the AM box. So let me just replay a few snippets from that AM box.
Light.
Light on, I just heard.
I switched my torch to on.
Good.
Just as we turned the lights on?
Yes.
Okay. You'd prefer us to have the lights on, would you? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we've got the lights on for you.
These people.
These people.
Make a lot.
Make a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Veins.
These people make a lot of noise.
Yes.
So you brought up something that night, Jules. The power of pareidolia.
Yeah.
Was what we heard something, do you think, or was that the power of pareidolia?
I do think it was something. The reason I say that is because we got those answers in response to direct questions, and those answers made sense at that point. And I think, as I said on the night, you do have to be very careful with anything that you use on an investigation. You have to use everything with caution. And that's not from a health and safety perspective, that kind of caution. It's from the, okay, does this actually make sense? Is this logical? And is it applicable? Because it is just so easy to just jump to the conclusion, yes, it's paranormal. Yay, we've caught some evidence, great. But unless it is logical and makes sense to the question that you're asking, you just have to discount it. And a little bit later on, we were still using the box, but the stuff that was coming out of it, you could tell, was just utter nonsense.
Yeah.
It had changed. There were kind of like two halves to using that piece of equipment. One half where it seemed as though the answers that we were getting were perfectly valid, and the other half where it was just utter nonsense.
For me, the music box was such a highlight of that evening. Once we had moved to the altar and we were asking our questions, it just kept going off. I was going to say at random times, but I don't think it was random. I think it was in response, because I had said, your rods are moving, mine are not. Dun, 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 dun. And let's just remind listeners the sound of that music box and some of the highlights of when that went off.
This is called a spirit music box.
Okay.
All right. So this is also a motion sensor on front here, just like the lights. So when I switch this on, you'll hear a really horrible, haunting bit of music. So be prepared. And then what we do is we ask that our spirit team, so our guides, assist us now with this communication.
The rods that Jules is holding start to move.
Okay, so that's just like a little confirmation that we've got somebody with us, okay? That's our spirit team who are wanting that communication. And we've got movements in the distance, which could absolutely not be.
Okay, can you please move my rods to the direction of the font? Yours are going. Why not? Mine aren't moving. Okay, let's try again.
As I was talking about earlier. So with this, to begin with, just hold the pendulum in your hand. Okay, just feel. Hi, Michael. It's lovely that you're over there with us. You're very welcome here, of course. We are in your space. So was this the church that you came to do your worship as a family?
The pendulum say yes.
Yes, and it was boring. Were you bored?
A very strong yes.
Heck yes.
Yeah,
Look at that strong
I
yes.
don't blame you. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? You have got a lot of experience. For me, that night, that music box was the highlight. So what are your thoughts on the music box that evening?
Do you know, when I first got that music box, obviously I was like a kid in a sweet shop and, new piece of paranormal equipment. Yay, gotta love a bit of tech. And I excitedly popped it on the dining room table and it just kept going off all the time. And it was like, okay, I've just been conned here, haven't I? Somebody's 3D printed this little case and put a few little fancy electronic gizmos inside it and some flashing lights, and yay, they've made a paranormal bit of kit. But the more I've used it, actually, the more it seems to be working in a way that can't be explained. And when you are talking and it goes off, it is like it is in response to your voice. And in my opinion, that then becomes very valid. And where we had it situated in between the pews, there was no way that our movement could have triggered that. You asked me on the night about whether or not my shadow could set it off. And so obviously, just to be the professional paranormal investigator that I am, I did dance like a loon and wave my arms around.
I can attest you did.
You know, but it's got to be done. Because if somebody asks a question, then actually it's like, okay, let's just test the theory. And that's, to my mind, what good investigation is about. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's test things out. Let's try it out, and let's see if we can discount it. So that's why I was dancing like a fool.
I thought it was a brilliant piece of. I was going to use the word evidence, but I stopped myself from using it for some reason. I don't know why, because it did go off at very random. Not random, but very specific times. We were asking questions when my rods weren't working, it still went off. I felt to confirm what we were asking. I just thought, and that noise is so creepy. So creepy.
Well, if you're going to build a bit of kit to use on a ghost hunt, then absolutely make it the creepiest tune that you can. Really? Obviously.
What about the ghost tube camera? You got out your secondary mobile phone, which has no access to the internet. Since the evening, I've done some research on these cameras, on these things, and I think it's fair to say there's a big old split. There's a very much the scientific community are very much saying no, there's absolutely no way this could pick anything up, and the paranormal community are saying, I hear it, but still. And that evening, I was very conscious that there was something next to you. There was something on your right. Yet when I turned around, it was picking up the pews and making the pews into the shape of people. So I feel that we had the best of both. We had, yes, it was picking up on the pews and it was making shapes from the pews and the random different shapes in the room. But also, it was picking up something where there was nothing to pick up on. Absolutely.
And once again, some paranormal investigators, as you say, think it's an amazing piece of kit and they will rely heavily on it. But it's just another piece of kit to use to gather and to build evidence. And so I think maybe that's why you might have been reticent to say the word evidence before, because actually that's only one small piece of the puzzle that happened on that night. And it's not until you put it all together that you think to yourself, actually, yes, we experienced something. And with the SLS camera, I think it's good, actually, that you saw it showing shapes when it was quite clearly just the edge of the pews.
Yes.
Because it allowed you to experience when it was obviously something normal, so that then when you saw it when it was just beside me and there wasn't that pew next door, then it's like, oh, actually, that's now different. So you're getting both sides of the story, which, again, I think is valuable on investigations.
And what I loved, when I was filming you, I was seeing something, and before I even said it, you were saying, I'm feeling something on my right-hand side. Same with me. When I got up and I said, there's something here, it's like it's someone's personal space, and you're right, well, let's have a look. And yep, there's something there.
Yep.
We both had that feeling at exactly the same time as it's showing up on the screen. I thought that was really interesting.
And that really is the power of using that kind of equipment, because you use it in conjunction with your own senses and with other pieces of equipment. And if all of the equipment is doing something fancy all at the same time and you're feeling something, then you've got some good evidence.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's only ever going to be personal evidence. You could come to the best scientific minds with the best evidence that you could possibly find, and they'll still find a way to tell you that actually it's perfectly normal. So we're never going to find actual evidence. I've resigned myself to that fact well and truly.
How about the dowsing rods? Because that was my first sort of foray into dowsing rods. I'm aware of them. I had no idea that's what they look like in their folded up form. I was very confused when you got this bunch of what looked like to me Parker pens out of your box of goodies. I think for me, I really struggled with them because I was so conscious of my micro movements, of making it work. But then, since the investigation, Jules, I'm also thinking, well, hang on a minute. Even if they are my micro movements, I don't know the answers to this thing. I don't know the answers to it. And actually, if spirit is tapping into me and using my body to communicate, why would it not use micro movements to influence the dowsing rods? Does that make sense to you?
It does, yes. I do think we still have to be very careful when it comes to those sorts of movements that we're not in control of, because let me put it this way. We were using one piece of equipment with one person. And so the answers that we were getting seemed logical at that moment in time. Now take those micro movements and put that, say, for example, with a group of people who are sat around a table and they're all touching a planchette and they're at a Ouija board. And I will just briefly say Ouija boards can be perfectly safe if used properly and by well-trained people. Please, none of your listeners go out and buy a Ouija board and start having a go, because they can be dangerous. But if you are all there holding onto a planchette, then one person's micro movements can set that planchette going, because you're all there wanting it to happen. And so the slightest bit of movement and everybody can just run with it. And I think that is where you can then run into difficulties. And on an investigation in the past, my other half, he wanted to run more of a logical, is that the right word? I don't know. I'll use it anyway. Investigation when it came to using the Ouija board. Mm. And he sat everybody around a table and he blindfolded everybody. And he was the one asking the questions. And what came out through the planchette moving on the Ouija board was utter tripe. And as soon as he took the blindfolds off, then straight away, it all started to make perfect sense again.
Yeah, it made sense.
So those sorts of micro movements where it's a group of people can be much more challenging.
So what are your thoughts on the dowsing rods then? Are you pro dowsing rods or are you cautious with them?
I am completely and utterly pro dowsing rods. They have been used for hundreds of years successfully to find water. So I know they work, because how on earth is a human being supposed to find an underground stream, for example? We have utterly lost our connection with the earth to be able to do that kind of thing. And yet you can get somebody in a field with a pair of copper rods and they can go straight to the water source. So they do work. They absolutely do work. I've done public investigations before where the members of the public have never used them before, and we've hidden things around the venue that we were at.
Oh, I love it.
And these members of the public were able to find these hidden objects using the dowsing rods. And it was overwhelming, the evidence in that situation, that they do work. So, yeah, I'm 100% behind them.
Okay, Michael. Michael. This person, this spirit, this character, I feel like I managed to form a bit of a connection with this individual, because I just felt there was this real fun playfulness around him. I could visualize him in my mind's eye. I knew there was another element of his name. I knew his age. As soon as he came through, I felt that he was really curious about us and wanted to play with us. And I felt like he was really interacting with us. I've got on my notes here, Michael, discuss.
Whoa, that's broad, but
so
okay.
I'm going to leave that one with you, Jules. Discuss. What were your thoughts on Michael?
He seemed to be very typical of the sort of person, spirit, that you find on investigations. Somebody who has maybe seen the activity in a place which maybe they would pass through, maybe on a day-to-day basis while they're going about their spirit life. And they saw something going on and just thought, what's happening in there tonight? I'm just going to have a pop in. I seem to get that quite a bit, where you have that kind of curious element to the spirit that you meet. And I thought he was adorable. I thought he was a very, very sweet little character. I do think he was playful. I think that's why he was setting off the spirit box, the music box. But yeah, no, it's a very typical kind of thing for me to encounter.
I just got such a lovely vibe. And that whole evening spent in that church, there was nothing scary. There was nothing horrendous. I felt nothing but love and calmness. That was such a calm location.
It is a lovely, wonderful place. I do think an element of how the investigation went on the night is down to our intention. Mm-hmm. We both seem to be people who like to work in the light and with love, and I think that came across on the night. We're both very respectful human beings, and at the end of the day, it's their place. We are the ones who are intruding in their space when we go to these places, and so my opinion has always been to be respectful of them, and then hopefully we get that respect in return. And I think we felt that on the night. As you say, it did feel very, very calm, and it's just the way it should be. Paranormal investigations should not be sensationalised.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I agree. I am. It's yeah. I think. Well, again, just saying what I was saying earlier on, the professionalism that you conducted this one with was just. I really appreciated it. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It means a lot that you've said that, actually. So thank you very much. It does mean a lot to me.
No, it's true. I thought this was so. For me, I felt that I was heard as well when I doubted something, when I didn't hear something, when I didn't think it was something that you were saying, or vice versa. I didn't feel like I couldn't say it. I felt like it was an open forum, as long as, again, going back to that word, respect.
Well, thank you. And that is the way it should always be. Always.
Let's listen to the sound that we both heard. Let's just re-listen to that noise.
Yeah. This is called...
Did you hear that? Behind you?
That was just like a creaking sound of
It
somebody
was a
sitting on a
creaking.
pew, wasn't it?
It was creaking. I heard that.
And I'm freezing up my back.
Now, since I've edited this episode, Jules, and since I was putting it all together, I realised what the beat was. You remember I said on the episode, it sounds like something is mimicking your speech pattern, because it only sort of goes, there's like a beat to it. Do you remember me saying that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. I figured out what that is. That is because the microphone is constantly switching it on and off, and it only activates when it hears a voice, like when it records. So the reason why it sounds like it's dun 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 in your speech pattern is because the microphone is constantly turning it on and off when you're saying your words, and that is why it recorded the background noise in that strange pattern. Nonetheless, we still heard something, and it still picked something up on that microphone. I thought that was amazing because we were both just talking normally, and we both heard it. We both stopped, and we looked behind you because we knew it came from within the church.
Absolutely. And to get that kind of auditory noise, that real confirmation that both of us heard as well, that is superb. It's not something which regularly happens on investigations. So I was actually over the moon when we both heard that.
Because you heard something earlier on in the evening, and you said it sounded like someone's skirt swishing. I
Yes.
didn't hear that.
No.
We both heard fireworks.
We did. Yep. Yeah.
But we both heard this thing, which was not fireworks because it came from within the church. It was like one of the pews was sort of squeaking.
Absolutely. It was kind of like the noise of somebody sitting down on it, wasn't it? That kind of creaking sound of wood taking weight all of a sudden. So, yeah, it was a really, really cool noise.
Yeah, I'm so gutted that the microphone didn't pick it up properly. But I just wanted to explain what that beat was when I was explaining in the extra episode about it being a beat, and I now know why that is. So I just wanted to explain that.
Okay, thank you for that, because I actually, when you said that, I was thinking, it didn't sound like that at the time. So
No.
Why does it sound like that on the recording? So that makes sense. So thank you.
I thought the whole evening was really eye-opening, really interesting, and I liked how level-headed it was. You said on the evening, Jules, that paranormal investigations are not like they are on TV. They're not like they are on Most Haunted. And in fact, you texted me beforehand, and when you gave me the coordinates to follow, you said, be prepared for a really boring night. It might be that nothing happens, but it did. It was really subtle. It was it was subtle, apart from, music boxes going off every 5 minutes. But it was so interesting, so interesting. So just thank you so much for inviting me.
You are so welcome. I have to also say that I was very impressed with you, because this was your first investigation, and you just followed my lead. You were professional yourself. Huge thanks to you, because it was an absolute pleasure to do that investigation with you.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you so much. If you want to do some Benedict's Abbey, I am well up for it. That'd be brilliant. Okay, just a couple of questions just to wrap up then, Joolz. Why? Why do you investigate? What is the purpose of this? Why do you do it?
On a personal level, I would love to be able to find some tangible evidence. The very first experience I had was when I was a kid. I was in a pub. And, back in the good old days where you're allowed to go in pubs as kids and what have you. And I was sitting up on one of the bar stools, swinging my legs and drinking my lemonade. And I was having a lovely conversation with a man who was up the corner of the pub. And my mum and dad were looking at me really strangely. And they said, "Who are you talking to?" And I said, "The man in the corner." And I described him. And I described what he was wearing and what he looked like. And the landlord sort of peered over the bar and he said, "Oh, yeah, she's seeing old," whatever his name was, I can't remember his name now, but he got a picture down from just above the bar, and it was the old landlord, and that was the picture of the man. And so from a very early age, I've had these experiences, these encounters, and I've just wanted to understand for the entirety of my life. And so doing these investigations, it started off me just wanting to know what happens to us. Why am I the person who can see these strange things, whereas other normal people can't? But then it's turned into so much more. It's now, well, how can I help? What can I do to make it better for some of these spirits that I have encountered? Because at the end of the day, every spirit we meet used to be a living, breathing person. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, and some of them need help. And if I can help just a little bit in that way, then I feel I've done good stuff, I suppose.
Wonderful. If somebody wanted to start their own investigation, how might they start? What advice might you give them?
I think the first thing that I would hope they would do would be to go on other local groups' investigations. Don't just go out there with no experience whatsoever, because at the end of the day, you could be playing with things that maybe you don't understand. You can put yourself into situations which maybe you don't know then how to deal with it. I've been on investigations before where people have had attachments, and through a huge amount of training that I've gone into myself with Reiki and crystal healing and so on, spiritual healing and what have you, I am trained and I know how to deal with those situations. But if somebody wanted to do this on their own, go along first of all to a local group, do some public investigations, get a feel for the type of equipment that is out there and is being used, so that you don't just spend an absolute fortune on all the nonsense that you can buy on eBay. People are very happy to sell you all sorts of stuff that is absolute nonsense. But also hopefully by going out with your local group, you'll also get a better understanding of what you're going to encounter physically, because you have to keep yourself safe. Be prepared for weather and make sure you've got a really good torch and all this kind of stuff, which you wouldn't necessarily know unless you had been on a public investigation.
Thank you so much, Joolz. Really appreciate your time this evening. And happy Christmas. It's that time of year. happy.
Well, it's Yule for me. I'm not a Christmas celebrator, but thank you very much for the well wishes.
I was going to say, is it winter solstice? Is it Yule? I'd imagine it'll be Yule for you. So yeah, happy Yule. Thank you so much.
I hope all of your listeners have an absolutely fantastic Christmas or Yule or whatever they celebrate too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jules. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're very, very welcome.
Oh, the wonderful, the marvellous Joolz Bailey for you. I'm not sure there's much more I can add to that. Let's keep this short and sweet, shall we? Let me know what you think. If you have any thoughts, if you have any explanations as to what we experienced, as to what we heard, as to what we felt, I would really love to hear your explanation. Right, I'm going to wrap this up. Just a few things to touch upon before I love you and leave you. The first thing, pop along to my Instagram page, the.psychic.explorer. On there, I have posted some pictures from the evening of this paranormal investigation. At the time of recording, Jules has been unable to send me the video of the Ghost Tube app. Her phone really does not connect to any internet whatsoever, and it's difficult for her to actually transfer it over. So I'm going to try and ask her if she could take a video of the phone. It's going to be a bit rudimentary, but it should work. And that is the moment of the investigation when I stood up and said I can feel something in front of me. Jules was recording on the Ghost Tube app and saying that yes, there is a matchstick man in front of me. So I'm going to try and get that uploaded for you because even I have not seen that video yet. The second thing, in 2 weeks' time, no, not even that, in a week and a half, there'll be the second full episode of this winter solstice season. That episode is going to be the ghost stories that you lovely listeners have sent in to me. They are not as scary as the stories that you sent in to me for the Halloween episode. These stories are much more subtle. These stories are more, I find them more comforting. So if you're not already, make sure you are subscribed and that you tap that notification bell to make sure that episode goes straight into your podcast platform, whichever one that might be that you listen to my dulcet tones on. The third and final thing, tonight, the day that I'm recording this, is a full moon. So I hope that this full moon brings you everything you need. Love, clarity, good energy. And I hope that is in good stead for the manic festive season that may be lying ahead of you at this moment in time. Right, love you and leave you, lovely, lovely explorers. I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.